Woo! Training camp. We're finally here.
Yay!
Finally training camp time, which means there's a ton of news today, but I'm okay with it because it's finally training camp time. Have I said that yet? Finally training camp.
Finally training camp.
I'm
feel
excited.
like we need to say it maybe more times.
Finally training camp.
Okay, we're good now.
We have the Hall of Fame game on, I believe, Thursday, which nobody worth anything will play in, but everybody's going to watch because it's going to be exciting. There's not going to be anybody you care about, but it'll be exciting.
It's on Thursday already? Shit.
Yeah, Thursday. Hall of Fame game is Thursday, and then
Holy
we're
hell.
full on into preseason swing next week,
We are finally here.
where we actually start watching football
Oh, I'm excited.
instead of just talking a lot about it or watching rookie film or whatever. But hey, before we get to that, we still got rankings to get through. That means the fantasy season's getting closer. We're here. We're going to talk about running backs today. Going to go through about 60 plus guys that we have ranked. We'll talk about a handful of them, give you some narratives on a few of them. Before we get to that, though, you can follow the show, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped at BeerfieldFF. Facebook and YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football. Also have merch available and a Patreon. You can DM us for that info if you want to support us in that way. We do have a listener league that we're taking entries for right now. It's a 12-team IDP league. You can enter that enter for that live drawing by either subscribing to YouTube and sending us a screenshot of you subscribe to YouTube. We'll give you one entry for that. 2 entries if you buy merch, or 2 entries for a screenshot of you buying FF Expo tickets purchased using the promo code BEER at MidwestFFExpo.com, where you'll get $5 off for using promo code BEER. We'll be there August 17th.
18th.
18th. We'll be there the 17th, too. It's not at the Expo.
Yes, that's
The
fair.
Expo's the 18th. We'll be there the 17th.
We'll be in Canton. For those of you out in the area, we'll be in the Columbus and Canton area.
Or for those of you that just want a cheap getaway at the end of the dog days of summer. I mean, hotels are cheap. They're like $100 in that area. Go see the Hall of Fame, come hang out at a fantasy football expo, say hi to us, watch some live content, see some other great podcasts that are going to be there. So it'll be a good time. But before we go any further with that, actually, we're done with the intro. We're not going any further with the intro. That's it. We're introduced. Oh, yeah. At the BFF in Springfield, Illinois. At Hot BFF down here in St. Louis. I guess we should introduce ourselves. Oh, yeah. Dan, you want to say hi?
Hi,
Okay.
friends.
Okay, now we're going to find out what's fueling us today. Believe it or not drunk yet. Actually, I am. I had sex with an alligator.
What's fueling Beerfield?
Sex with an alligator is the name of the shot I did at the restaurant, by the way. Actually, I ordered 4 shots with an alligator and just called it an orgy with an alligator.
There you go.
I'd asked the waitress, though, what sex with an alligator was besides a really bad idea. What are you drinking today, Dan?
I am drinking Blueberry Charbaz from Mars Brewing. It's a double dry hop milkshake, double IPA with blueberry and lactose. Mars Brewing comes from Chicago. We finally got it down here in the Springfield area. So I've been staring at this for a couple weeks with anticipation to get it to you guys. It's gonna be pretty tasty, I think.
All right, and I have brought back from Denver with me after my couple-day trek out there a graham cracker porter from Denver Beer Co. in Denver, Colorado. And I can tell you right now from the first sip of it, I should have brought back more than one. Just to pick your 6 so I can get as much Denver beer as possible, but I should have not just done a pick your 6 on this one. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, we will have a full beer review for you about halfway through the running backs. We're going to go ahead and kick it to news because, well, there's a lot of it with training camps underway.
News.
All right, before we get to people that are going to be there, people that are there but hurt, people that are there and not hurt, and hype coming out of training camp, we got to get to people that aren't there first. So Melvin Gordon is expected to not report to the starter Chargers camp. It's been reported that 2 sides are about $2 to $3 million apart in average value.
It sounds like this is getting pretty serious. He's already clocked his needed years of playing, I guess, to be allowed to join free agency. So I don't know if this will reach the Lev Bell level, but he could miss some time in this.
I would like to think not, with them only being $2 to $3 million off. I mean, that doesn't seem like a whole lot of money, and people are saying that $2 to $3 million a year. Well, that's a lot, but I mean, $2 to $3 million a year and guaranteed doesn't seem like a whole lot or a reason to keep him till out of training camp. But apparently, both sides are digging their heels in, so this is definitely a situation to monitor over the next 2 weeks. And if we get to within a couple weeks of the season, you're really gonna have to start, questioning Melvin Gordon and maybe slipping him.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the Ballers have dropped him pretty significantly, just from what I've listened to and talked to. So I think there's going to be experts out there that tell him, that tell you to fade him a bit. There's some that tell you to don't worry about it. I think right now, because preseason football hasn't started yet, assume that he's going to play. And then as we get to week 2 or 3, and there's nothing, concrete to go off of that point, and he's not back yet, then I think you have to start.
You got to start fading him then, which the good news is most redraft leagues, if you're doing it right, aren't going to be drafted by the time you have to make that decision to fade him anyway. Exactly. If you are drafting for early for some reason, I would treat it like you're not fading him, because again, $2 to $3 million a year isn't that much money, despite what people are trying to make you think.
And then if you're doing that, try to get yourself an Austin Eckler or Justin Jackson just as a hedge. You should already be doing that if you're doing those redraft leagues for right now, or, as for us, when the news came out during Scott Fishbowl. So,
yep. And the good part about Eckler, too, is that if you draft him as a cuff, he's still going to have value throughout the season. Yep. But Justin Jackson gets value, too, if Melvin Gordon doesn't go. We saw that at the end of last year.
Yep.
Speaking of people not reporting, Ezekiel Elliott has not reported to Cowboys camp. Again, his situation is interesting because if he doesn't report by August 6th, he doesn't told the needed time to become a free agent. The Cowboys get another year of him cheaper, so it'll be interesting to see what Zeke does. I think he's just sending a message. I would definitely expect him in camp before the 6th.
Yeah, I can see him, going until the last day, like showing up August 6th, like ready to go. Maybe like, 15 pounds a little heavier. Who knows?
But. Yep. And then Michael Thomas is not reported for the start of Saints training camp either, as the two sides try to work out a deal.
I've heard no news on this until now.
I hadn't either. There was no even inkling that he was going to hold out. Everything's been around Julio Jones, and then
I'm assuming this
world today.
I'm assuming this is going to get done pretty quickly. Otherwise, I think this would have been news or more news on this.
Yeah, you would definitely think so. So another situation to monitor. I'd consider his situation closer to Zeke's right now than Gordon's.
Okay.
In other news, Danny Etling has transitioned to wide receiver from quarterback.
Yay. I guess they need more wide receivers.
They do. Steelers signed head coach Mike Tomlin to an extension through the 2021 season.
Yeah.
The Rams have signed head coach Sean McVay and GM Les Snead to contract extensions to the 2023 season.
Makes sense.
Which, offensively speaking, I mean, you can Mike Tomlin, but he has produced fantasy-relevant players. We know what the Rams are doing, so those are both good news for people on those teams and for dynasty owners of people on those teams.
That's fair.
And Golden Tate has been suspended 4 games for violating the league's performance-enhancing drug policy. Tate stated the incident stems from a fertility treatment he was prescribed that he was prescribed, which he discontinued days later once realizing it contained a banned substance. He's going to appeal that suspension.
I'm interested to see how this plays out because I have a feeling they won't appeal it.
Well, he's going to appeal it. You mean they won't reduce it?
I'm sorry. Or that they won't. Yeah, that they won't reduce it. I just have this feeling that they won't.
Yeah, it might end up being 3 games, but either way, we'll get to the Giants situation more here in a little bit once we talk injuries too, because they've had a bad week.
They've had a really bad couple of days.
Yep. All right, on to roster news first. The Jets have signed former Texans tight end Ryan Griffin. Both Griffin's vandalism and intoxication charges were dismissed, so he's not facing discipline from the league at this time. In a corresponding move, they waived running back D'Angelo Henderson. So Griffin's a guy that could be interesting the first 4 weeks while Chris Herndon's out.
Yeah, if he can not get concussed.
Yes. The Vikings have released running back White Rock Thomas and claimed former Jets running back D'Angelo Henderson. So Henderson will compete with Mike Boone for that third back job.
Yeah, Boone. I think Amir could also.
And Abdullah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Amir Abdullah will be a part of that too.
Yep. The Cowboys have released wide receiver Allen Hurns, and he was later signed to a 1-year deal by the Dolphins. So Hurns going away, and we will have at some point some special episodes on risers and fallers and things like that. But Hurns going away helps Michael Gallup on the surface to me.
Okay.
And that shows to me that the Cowboys trust Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb's health to be able to get rid of depth in Allen Hurns like that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's fair.
Also, Hurns landing with the Dolphins is interesting because Albert Wilson is still dealing with a hip injury, which I'll toss out there later. Jakeem Grant's had problems getting back healthy. Kenny Stills. We know that, but Devontae Parker hasn't been worth a whole heck of a lot either. So he's going to have a better chance to find relevance in Miami than he would have in Dallas, I think.
He might have some actual NFL relevance, but in terms of fantasy, just with how bad that offense expects to be, and I think there's just one receiver to own there, and Kenny Stills at the moment. I like Albert Wilson more as a dynasty or super deep league play, but
I mean, if Wilson can't get healthy, though, I mean, we've seen Fitzpatrick support receivers in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just that there's opportunity for him to crack a lineup, see targets, and we've seen Hurns be relevant too.
Yep.
So
that is very true.
The Bengals have signed wide receiver Tyler Boyd to a 4-year, $43 million extension through 2023. They also re-signed offensive tackle Andre Smith to fill the hole guard and or tackle left by Jonah Williams, and Clint Bowling retired.
Yeah, I do like this move to sign Boyd. I think they got him. I think this is going to be kind of where the Adam Thielen deal was for the Vikings, where they got him for decently cheap. He blew up. Then you have a good contract for a cornerstone piece. This also could potentially spell the end for AJ Green.
So they didn't pay him wide receiver one money. His deal was modeled after Sterling Shepard's.
Yeah.
So, they paid him wide receiver 2 money. It assures he's going to stay in Cincinnati. I don't know that it hurts anything to do with AJ Green other than AJ Green's ankle hurts what it has to do with AJ Green.
Well, no, I know, but I'm saying that they may not want to pay Green, or they may be looking to the future. And, Green's 31 years old at this point, who's battled multiple foot injuries. It's been injured in 3 of the last 4 seasons. So I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying this could.
That's why I was pointing out that it's wide receiver 2 money, not wide receiver 1 money, because it doesn't inherently impact Green necessarily.
True.
Because, if they'd paid him wide receiver 1 money or something drastically over what some higher end twos like Sterling Shepard had gotten, then, I could see that. But it doesn't preclude them from doing anything with AJ Green. And, it's not saying they won't move on from Green, but if they do, it won't be because of this contract.
Yeah.
And if Boyd continues to ride, then, maybe they don't have to re-sign Green. I do agree at that point.
Yeah.
Patriots have signed tight end Lance Kendricks. That's mere depth signing.
Body.
Yay. The Lions released running back Theo Riddick in a little bit of a surprising move, so that's going to bump Kerryon Johnson up for me.
And the sound of that noise you hear is Kerryon Johnson's ADP rising.
Yep.
And I'm not going to own him anywhere.
I won't own him anywhere, but he will move up for me with that move, because that does guarantee that he gets the majority of the passing work.
He should.
Yep.
For sure.
In news that you only care about, the Texans claimed wide receiver Chad Hansen on waivers from the Saints.
Chris Hansen's brother.
Yeah.
I'm kidding with that, but yay, I guess.
Yay. 49ers signed tight end Niles Paul. Giants signed wide receiver TJ Jones, formerly of the Lions. More on that later.
Jesus.
The Chargers waived injured wide receiver Dylan Cantrell and cut something called Fred Trevelyan. Then they signed Malachi Dupree and Jordan Smallwood. So,
the fact I know 3 of those names, I'm impressed.
Smallwood, Dupree, and Cantrell.
Yes.
Yeah, same. Yeah. So out with the one person I was hoping did well, and in with another one.
I mean, we didn't hate Malachi Dupree.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Out with Dylan Cantrell, who I hope did well, and in with another guy who I hope did well, and Malachi Dupree.
That's fair.
I'd like Malachi Dupree to do something. It was an injury waiver for Cantrell, by the way.
Okay.
And the Raiders have waived running back Chris Warren.
Oh, Nick's heart just sank a little bit in this one.
Yep. He'd kind of fallen out of favor there. Struggles with the playbook, and I guess weight was the other one. So we'll see where he catches on.
If he can catch on it as a fullback, I think he can find himself as an NFL
Somebody's going to take a flyer.
guy.
on
He's
him.
250. He's big. And he tested pretty well for his size. So
He did. All right, on to injury news. Julian Edelman will be sidelined for the first 3 weeks of training camp with a broken left thumb. He's currently not in jeopardy for week 1. Also in Patriots news, Sony Michel's been cleared to return to practice. So decompressing that, I'm not really too worried about anything with either of them right now.
no, I think the Edelman news was massively overblown. Yeah.
Yeah, he apparently did it 3 weeks ago, so I'm not too worried about him being ready for the start of the season. He's a veteran. He would have gotten limited work in anyway.
Yep.
Texans activated wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins from the active PUP list. They placed tight end Kahale Waring on the active NFI list, and Will Fuller reported as a full go at practice.
Yay, Will Fuller is not injured yet. I guess we should be happy about that.
Yeah.
And Hopkins was probably never in jeopardy to actually miss time.
No news on Waring and what the NFI list is, but Jordan Thomas, I think, benefits of Waring cannot get in training camp reps.
He's been getting a lot of hype. I thought he was going to be the guy anyways. We weren't high on Jordan Atkins, and he's massively old already for being just a year 2 guy.
Mhm.
But Thomas showed up a lot last year, didn't get a lot of reps, but I think he can find himself the top of this depth chart in year 1.
I think so too, because Waring was going to have to come in and do something in camp, which he has the ability to do, to take that away from him. But if he's on the NFI, he can't really do that.
Yep.
Colts wide receiver Darius Fountain was placed on the active NFI list with an undisclosed injury. Running back Spencer Ware is on the active PUP list, and quarterback Andrew Luck was a full go in camp following offseason calf problems. So good news on Luck. Sorry, Miguel on Fountain, and I don't care about Spencer Ware.
Yes, all those 3 things.
Colts wide receiver Devin Funches was carted off the field during Sunday's practice.
And the sound of that noise is Paris Campbell coming to town.
Paris Campbell and somebody we're going to talk about later on too, Deion Kane. Both guys getting hype.
Oh, yes. I'm excited.
Bengals wide receiver AJ Green was carted off the field with torn ligaments in his ankle. He's expected to miss 6 to 8 weeks. So Tyler Boyd, that's the sound you hear of his ADP going up.
So they did say, I think it was Adam Schefter came out and also said that Green's is not likely to play week 1.
Mhm.
I can see them definitely easing Green into the start of this season and not trying to rush him back.
Yeah, the Bengals said 4 weeks, and another report said 6 to 8 weeks. And if it is at the 8 week, he'll miss about the first month of the season.
Yeah, but as for Tyler Boyd and early on, I don't know how much things changed for Tyler Boyd once Green went out. The shift in coverage and him being the number 1 guy, I think he still managed pretty productive weeks out of that, but I don't think it was a massive jump.
I was like Juju, but I think that the other guy that's going to benefit from this is potentially Joe Mixon, and then unfortunately John Ross, if he can do anything.
Ross, we're still hoping for Stanley Morgan.
Stanley Morgan Jr. also might have an opening. So watch in camp who shines, because behind Boyd is wide open.
Yeah, for sure.
Julio Jones is still not 100%. He was limited to side field work while rehabbing a foot injury. He's about 10 to 14 days away per Dan Quinn. Meanwhile, Calvin Ridley left Friday's practice with a hamstring injury and sat out Saturday.
Watch Calvin Ridley's Miguel. Speaking of Miguel, we just briefly talked about him with Darius Fountain. He had a great retweet about the Damian Williams, which I'm sure we're about to get to sooner or later.
Yep.
With his hamstring injury. Fade some of these guys that have these soft tissue injuries. Hamstring injuries take a while to fully recover from, especially if you're trying to continue to play on it or practice on it. So guys like Ridley and guys like Williams, and then any of the other guys that have battled with this, pay close attention to that, because you don't want to be caught over drafting the player that looks to start the season slow.
Yep. And you don't have to tank them, but maybe lower them in their tier. If you're debating between them and another guy. I mean, it's not expected to be serious for Ridley, but hamstring injuries have the tendency to pop back up.
Yep.
Cleveland running back Duke Johnson missed Saturday's practice with a hamstring injury.
So many hamstrings got hurt.
Yep.
So many. I love Duke Johnson, but I hope he gets better. But yeah.
Titans placed tight end Johnny Smith on the active PUP list. Smith continued to rehab from a knee injury suffered last season. Meanwhile, Derrick Henry's in a walking boot following Friday's practice. Mike Vrabel's refused to point out really or provide any meaningful information whatsoever. It's been said that they're not concerned, but he's in a boot, so
I guess wait and see. Someone posted saying that Jeremy McNichols is the guy behind Derrick Henry, and he's the one that you should be, pointing at and picking up in Dynasty.
Jeremy McNichols is leapfrog Dion Lewis.
And I just laughed. I'm just like, well,
no,
why?
No,
I'm the show's Jeremy McNichols truther, and even I've left that. I want.
So ignore that. Dion Lewis is the guy. If Derrick Henry misses any time,
give me
Jeremy McNichols
Alex
needs
Barnes. God damn it, give me Alex Barnes.
Yeah, or Alex Barnes. Jeremy McNichols needs to show that he can learn a playbook.
He's been on like 7 teams in 3 years.
The Jaguars placed wide receiver Marquise Lee on the active PUP list with his knee injury. He's still trying to come back from that, so not good news for him.
No, I think he's in a fallout. I wouldn't be surprised if I haven't looked at contract situations, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's an odd man out there.
Yeah, he may not get cut, but it looks like he's going to come back slowly. So just monitor that situation.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce's a full go for training camp over in Chiefs land following an offseason ankle cleanup. Meanwhile, Damian Williams is not practicing because of a hamstring injury.
Hamstring injury. Yay! More things when they are the same, they're more the same. Either way.
Word of the day is hamstring injury.
Word of the day. That's right. Podcast word of the day, hamstring. Yeah. Again, it doesn't sound super serious, but again, just like Calvin really, it's just keep it monitored. This will likely project Carlos Hyde up in some ADPs, mock drafts, and likely lower Damian Williams.
Especially if he misses any time or it comes out as being severe.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp will not be placed on the active PUP list to open camp. He's a full go, although he's probably going to get the veteran treatment.
This is fantastic news for him to hopefully be 100% ready. What we've seen, especially recently with players coming off of ACLs and overextending themselves, likely getting these quote unquote word of the day hamstring injuries. So be careful with Kupp. I expect him to be a great buy second half of the season, though.
Yep. Well, and I think that, like I said, he's going to get eased back in. I'm not even buying second half of the season. I'm just drafting him.
Yeah, that's
at his ADP. I'm just drafting him.
Yeah.
Because I think they'll ease him into it in training camp and turn him loose come season time. I think that the way his curve is
that's especially
with this news is that he's just going to be good come week 1.
That is the hope with him, and then the guy we're about to talk about in a couple players.
Panthers quarterback Cam Newton avoided the active PUP list. He's going to be on a pitch count, though, to begin camp with the shoulder.
There's no need to rush him back into this.
Just, again, a veteran, so you just let him go.
Yep.
Darius Guice will not be limited in training camp per Jay Gruden, coming back from a knee and a hamstring injury. His hamstring injury was suffered earlier in the offseason. It was actually about 3 weeks before the news came out, I think, that he suffered the hamstring injury, and he said, yeah, don't worry about it, and apparently you shouldn't have worried about it, so keep an eye on him through camp, but we're going to talk about him later on as a value, or at least I am.
Yeah, I agree.
I took a badly timed drink of my beer there.
Sorry.
Dolphins wide receiver Albert Wilson will be limited to start camp with a hip injury. We talked about that a minute ago.
Yep.
So just keep an eye on that. Deshaun Hamilton's not practicing with a hamstring injury.
Take a drink every time
a hamstring injury happens.
Oh man, I hope he gets better. He's still my favorite receiver in that backfield, even with Cortland Sutton and Mr. Sanders there. I love Deshaun.
Yeah. No, I do too. I love Deshaun. I like Deshaun to take the next step. So I hope he can get back from that. He dealt with injuries last season too.
Yeah.
Cameron Brate's a full go with his hip injury. Jack Doyle returned to practice in full on Thursday, also coming off of a hip injury. Doyle more relevance than Brate, obviously.
Yep. It's good for both, though.
Yep. Now to the Giants.
Oof.
Sterling Shepard suffered a broken thumb in Thursday's practice. He's considered week to week. There's still a thought he could be ready by week 1, but probably, if he misses week 1, week 2 at the latest, I wouldn't expect it to be prolonged into the season. Corey Coleman suffered a torn ACL in Thursday's practice. He's going to miss the entire season, hence the TJ Jones signing. And then you got Golden Tate dealing with a pad suspension, which brings us to Evan Ingram, who's a full go following off-season hamstring problems.
Drink.
He said hamstring.
Avoid this receiver. Like, you're not drafting Eli Manning. I mean, I guess you're going to draft maybe as a backup in Superflex or 2 QB leagues, but like even this receiving core, it's oh my god. Evan Ingram should get a bump into this.
Evan Ingram's going to get a decently sized bump, and if Golden Tate gets the full 4 game suspension, I think Sterling Shepard gets a bump with, what's his name, Corey Coleman getting hurt too.
Yeah,
that's going to be a little bit of a bump to Shepard and potentially Tate, but Tate's missing 4 games also, so I don't know how much you bump that.
It's just so gross.
I'd avoid it. Shepard and Tate are going to be late round flyers, and Evan Ingram's ADP just got higher because it wasn't high enough.
He'll likely still be in that, Hunter Henry, OJ Howard tier, if not leapfrog Henry and find himself up there with OJ Howard.
See, I've got those two ranked the other way around anyway. So,
yeah.
I think so. The easiest way to put it is for the show, he's in that tier.
He is in the tier 2, 3, whichever, however you want to do the Kelsey, Ertz, and Kittle.
I got Kelsey in his own tier, so it's tier 3 for me.
I do too. Yeah, so it'll be the tier 2 tier for Evan Ingram, or I guess tier 3, excuse me. Tier 3.
Tier 3, but most people consider the big 3-1 tier. We don't, because Travis Kelsey, we think, is far, in a way, a bit better than Ertz and Kittle.
Yeah.
The Packers signed running back Corey Grant. I have this in the wrong section. But sure. Actually, he's probably a better receiving back than Jamal Williams, so he could be relevant at some point.
He's going to end up hurting Aaron Jones. Oh, my God. It's going to happen. Just watch.
Probably. The 49ers place Garrett Selleck and Jerick McKinnon on the active PUP list and fully cleared quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. McKinnon, there's interesting. If he's on that PUP list more than a week or two, start fading him and raising Burita. And Garrett Selleck, I just don't care about.
Yep.
Jimmy Garoppolo has also been fully cleared.
That's good.
And there's been one retirement, quarterback Mark Sanchez.
Mr. Butt Fumble himself.
Finally gives it up.
He'll be laid to rest.
He shall be missed.
He shall be.
All right, time to find out what type of Kool-Aid coming out of training camp we're drinking.
Are we drinking the Kool-Aid?
All right, this first item came out before the Theo Riddick injury. I honestly have no problems drinking this Kool-Aid now. Kerryon Johnson's going to catch 50-plus passes.
I was drinking the Kool-Aid even before the Theo Riddick.
Yeah, well,
catching passes isn't my concern for him. So
yeah, you just go ahead and fill me up a Gatorade cooler full of this Kool-Aid.
Right? Let's go.
Yep. Barring a hamstring injury, it'll be fine.
Yes, right.
Vance McDonald will have a, quote, monster season for the Steelers per ESPN's Jeremy Fowler.
If the guy can stay healthy, I'm totally doing the Vance dance. I love Vance this year.
What can we see the Vance dance on YouTube?
Yeah, at some point I'll actually figure out what it is. Mike Wright always says it from the Baller, so I'm going to ask him.
Well, I want you to make it up right now.
Now.
I'm not continuing this episode until you dance. Okay. YouTube just got a treat.
I just spiked my bottle cap.
I'm drinking it. I believe it. Vance McDonald, I think, is a good late round flyer to take who could end up in that Austin Hooper range. Deion Canes once again garnering hype from Colts GM Chris Ballard. Anything to it, especially now after the Funchess injury. I know that Paris Campbell's getting hyped too. Deion Canes kind of been the forgotten man, and there's been nothing but good news coming out of him all offseason.
It was great hype for him last year. Now with more bodies there, we were a little concerned, but even more so now. I think this is great. I think we'll have to hear more about Devin Funchess' injury, but all 4 of these receivers are a little bit different, and it's also talking about T.Y. Hilton. So I think there's a role for each. I think this is just a bump overall for Andrew Luck because there's just more weapons to throw to. But I've been rostering Deion Kane in a lot of leagues because if something is to happen to Devin Funchess and he is to miss time, Kane can fulfill that. There's just a lot of speed on this offense with him, Paris Campbell, and T.Y. Hilton playing together.
I gotta agree with that too. I think that Deion Kane is a good late round flyer. He's a good dynasty buy. And you could start to see
free right now in
Yeah,
Dynasty.
he's
Honestly,
probably out there on waivers, but you could start to see, some things and take notice.
yes, for sure.
Speaking of hype, Aaron Rodgers has continued to hype Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and beat reporter Ryan Rude. I don't think that's right. I don't think I wrote down his name right. I think it's Ryan Wood has reported he's very clearly ahead of Equanimeous St. Brown for reps opposite Devontae Adams with Geronimo Allison in the slot.
I'm just glad that we know what their starting three is likely going to look like even before preseason with Geronimo seeing the slot hype, which I'm higher on Geronimo out of the slot, but MVS is going to have some. He's a great best ball play because he's just a big downfield threat. I mean, we saw it last year just in spurts, but it's good to hear. It's good to see and know what the top three of the depth chart looks like now.
Well, and reports have been that he's improved his route running and his game speed too. So if he's made himself more than just a deep threat and can work some more intermediate routes and get separation with that speed, he very well could be in that wide receiver 3 range with 2 upside.
There is a lot of upside now. I think you'll start to see him as a upside dart throw at the end of redrafts. I know.
Kalen Ballage is getting the majority of first team work at Dolphins camp.
Look, it's been very well documented the split that you and I have on Kalen Ballage. Even though I agree with you on a lot of things on his faults, and I've always stated why.
Roto World agrees with me too. They even said, despite his faults at running back, his vision is trash.
It's terrible, and it's odd. It's just Dolphins, I guess. But there's more to come. I mean, when the first day broke out, people were like, whatever, it's just day one. But when day 2 again, when it was 2 days in a row of him getting mostly first team work, Ballage could step into Frank Gore work.
Yeah.
That more, but again, Ballage is still a very raw prospect. So
we'll see how they work. We'll see in preseason. We'll actually get to watch film.
Yeah, exactly.
So Matt Slides, Andrew Callahan believes Matt Lacoste is the odds-on favorite to replace Rob Gronkowski. I would tend to agree with that.
I'm not shocked with Ben Watson's 4-game suspension. So
that being said, Lacoste isn't going to be anywhere near Gronk's production, but he could be in that mess.
It's going to be fun to see when people overdraft the Patriots tight end because of the wrong, of the Gronk effect, and then he gets no work because it's Matt Lacoste and he's not fucking Rob, Gronkowski. So
not many are.
Whatever.
I know we're both drinking this next one. Coach Jay Gruden has reported Trey Quinn has a slot receiver job locked down.
Yeah, I guess it was him versus a bunch of UDFAs, so not surprised.
Not that hard.
Not that hard to beat out, but another great target for a young and up and coming quarterback is their underneath slot receiver. So I had Trey Quinn leading the pack this year for all receivers. That's not really worth a bunch, but he will have fantasy upside this year.
Yep. Maurice Harris is standing at Patriots camp working on the first team while Harry is working with the second team and Thomas is on the pup.
Yeah. I guess we'll see what happens.
It's the Patriots. I'm not drinking that at all. Keep me away from that Kool-Aid. I'm not even walking down the Kool-Aid aisle at the grocery store for that one.
I don't even want it.
Laugh out loud news of the week.
I forget you can't hear drops, so I can't just not transition into them.
It's fine.
Yeah, back to the Giants for this segment. Because we talk about them here every other week.
Oh, this is so good.
Pat Shurmur said Daniel Jones has, quote, exceeded expectations to this point. If you were on Twitter at all, Daniel Jones started camp 1 of 7 with a pick. They, quote, haven't seen everything he could do. Well, let's start with completing a pass.
Oh, my God.
And then we'll go from there.
He's throwing more interceptions. He's throwing as much picks as he has
completions.
That's a good start. A 1-to-1 completions to pick ratio is.
I guess if you set your expectations low enough, they'll always be exceeded.
Nathan Peter somewhere is feeling really good right now.
Yeah, Nathan Peterman out in Oakland is like, you guys could have had me.
Oh my God!
All right, running back rankings. Let's go.
rankings.
All right. As I mentioned, we kind of have clearly defined ones in most positions, and running back's no different. Saquon Barkley is that guy. So the first question is what sets him apart, and really, how does the recent slew of bad news for Giants wide receivers impact him for you?
So for me, I wouldn't put Zeke or a Barkley in his own tier. I still would put Zeke, Kamara, and CMC with it. But with projections, it's tough not to love Barkley. There's a good reason why he should see a bunch of the work, even with the receivers there. I hadn't seen a shit ton of targets, touches, just overall. They traded Kevin Ziegler from the Browns, and in part of the whole Odell Beckham trade, which is just a massive boost to their offensive line. Right now, they're ranked 21st per the huddle.coms and their offensive rankings up there. So there's still some work to be done, but I expect this to be a decent to above average run blocking team, which should obviously help Barkley in the fact that he's going to be leaned heavily on. If he's not your 101, just because you're concerned of the Giants offense, that's fine. We saw David Johnson last year not live up to his top 4 draft hype. He finished as the RB9. Todd Gurley from a few years ago, right before the Rams blew up. So there is some concern with this offense, which is why he's on a tier in his own for me. But Barkley is still going to Barkley, and he still should be a top 3 pick, top 2.
So the difference between Saquon Barkley and David Johnson is when you look at the underlying numbers, Barkley was creating a lot for himself, and we saw what happened to David Johnson when he didn't have space. But Barkley was first in evaded tackles, 9th in juke rate, 3rd in breakaway runs, and 1st in yards created. That all points to the ability to produce, even if he has to be the focal point, even if people are keyed in on him, even if the offensive line isn't great. 5.0 yards per attempt and 7.9 yards per reception, even if he regresses some, that still puts him firmly as efficient enough with the volume that he is going to see to easily be the running back 1. If you drop half a yard a carry off of that, and even if you drop half a yard per reception off of that, he is still firmly going to be the running back 1 if he gets even the volume he had last year, which was 261 rushes, 121 targets, and 91 receptions.
That's just that's still nuts to see.
And there's no Odell there this year, so there should, in theory, probably be a little bit more volume.
Maybe slight regression to some of his efficiency in terms of that, but again, I'm just trying to play some devil's advocate here because CMC is getting a lot of hype as the 101 in both the major formats.
Get to CMC here in a minute, but when you look at the underlying numbers on CMC, I'd be more afraid of him regressing without a great offense around him than I would be of Barkley.
Yeah.
Honestly, just looking at the underlying numbers.
Yeah. Again, you can't go wrong. It's just 1 through 4 is pretty chalk at this point.
Yep. Speaking of the 2, 3, 4, the rest of that elite tier would be Zeke Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. Not a whole lot to say on Zeke, just going to be more of the same of the last couple of years. He's firmly there. Kamara, though, you lost Mark Ingram. He's our consensus 3, so actually I think it's a literal tie between him and McCaffrey, but you get it.
Yeah.
A comes before C in the alphabet.
I don't see much drop off here. I mean, they signed Ingram, they signed Latavius Murray to be the new Ingram. I think we've all expect Kamara to never fully be a 285, 300 touch guy. He just doesn't have the size for it. The Saints don't use their running backs in that way. So Kamara, it's the same role for him, essentially.
I think he sees a few more rushes. I think he's up in the 220 attempt range there. And then you get, the passing work probably around the same. I mean, Latavius Murray is kind of the same type of back as what Mark Ingram was, though, so I don't think it's a huge bump either.
So
marginal.
So speaking of the passing numbers, they did take a slight dick when Ingram came back. Kamara was insane.
Hold on. They took a slight what?
Dip.
Oh, I thought you said a slight dick.
Well, it did take a slight.
We might have to go back to the tape on that one.
Either way, it did take a slight dip. into his numbers there, but not enough to keep him out of the top tier.
Like, what are we doing here? All right, Christian McCaffrey. We talked about him earlier. So he's our 4, and to me, there's obvious room for regression here. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's there. He had the 7th best run blocking efficiency, which put him just 26th in yards created, 53rd in yards created per carry, 15th in evaded tackles, and 49th in juke rate. And that's why I say the risk for CMC regressing is greater than the risk for Saquon, because CMC's numbers were good and his efficiency was good, but his line was blocking that for him. So I didn't project a big drop off for Christian McCaffrey. So I'm not saying that I see that as happening, but I am saying that I would be less surprised, and there's no way I'm taking him 101 with underlying numbers like that, even though I still think the pass volume is going to be there, and I still think he's going to be able to be efficient as a running back, and I'm not worried about anybody taking carries from him.
Yeah, I mean, he's but as safe as Barkley. I think at this point he's gonna get enough carries. He's seen multiple 100 target plus seasons now. Basically, as I put down, he's a more efficient Lev Bell with higher touchdown upside.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't get as much touchdowns as some of these other guys there, being that it's the fact that Cam Newton's still his quarterback. The thing I put down that could maybe hurt his numbers is if Cam reverts to his old ways with DJ Moore going into year 2, and then Curtis Samuel now improving massively, as a receiver. If you don't want to see that, or if you don't believe that, go see Matt Harmon's reception perception, and you'll see Curtis Samuel as one of the top route running receivers last year. So if Cam decides to revert back to those old ways, just even slightly, you could see maybe some less numbers, but CMC is still far and wide a top 4 running back.
Yeah, I agree with that. The volume's absolutely going to be there. It's just so the efficiency makes me a little nervous, but there's also the argument that if your line's 7th in run blocking, you don't have to create a lot of yards or juke a lot of people. So there's that too.
That's true.
All right, on to the guys that just missed the elite, and there are concerns about all 4 of these guys that we need to talk about and have talked about, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. But the guys that just missed the elite tier, Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, David Johnson, Todd Gurley are 5 through 8 in that order. So for each player, Le'Veon Bell, you've got a new team and he didn't play last year. Melvin Gordon, you've got a contract situation. David Johnson was horribly inefficient and didn't live up to the draft hype. Is coming in with a new quarterback, still a bad offensive line, and a completely new offense in Todd Gurley's knees. So 3 of the 4 were top 3 picks over the last 3 seasons. So I guess which of these guys would you prefer at their current ADPs? You've got Bell and Gordon at 109, Johnson at 106, and Gurley at 203.
David Johnson for me, because I think they'll be able to mask the poor offensive line, which is how the play calling and just a play format should be. This should be a lot of air raid style, extremely spread out. Kyler Murray is the perfect fit for that type of offense that he'll extend plays. David Johnson is one of the perfect dump off running backs, just with his lone value there. So I expect him to be better off for that, and just the fact that he has less concern with Bell, going into a new offense. He left what was a top 5 offensive line in Pittsburgh to the Jets right now, who project to have the 27th best line. This is per autoonline.com for that. And then with Gurley, obviously knee, and then Melvin Gordon, we'll have to see. Gordon has been battling injuries himself throughout his career, and top of the holdout as well. And then,
it's probably Lev Bell at the 109 for me. Gordon's contract situations makes it a little nervous. There's been no reports of Bell coming in out of shape, though. I do think that the pass volume is still relatively going to be there. I think he at least lives up to that ADP at 109.
So much volume for Bell there. Like, even if he doesn't get touchdowns, just like he didn't get touchdowns in Pittsburgh.
No. So there's just so much volume for him there, and the efficiency wasn't great his last full season in Pittsburgh, but he's still managed to get it done. He still managed to be the number 1 back that season. So
yeah.
You're telling me you can get him at the end of the first round for a guy that has had a year off to rest up. He's healthy. He's not being reported in as out of shape, and should get a decent amount of volume, where he still has that top 4 running back upside, then I'm going to take that at the end of the first round all day, the way running backs are going.
I agree with you completely. I love both Johnson and both Bell, especially at their ADPs, especially like if I can somehow, if Bell slips, because there are a lot of people out there who are concerned about Lev Bell.
Yeah.
And he's been seen in second round picks a lot. So if somehow I can go at Johnson to Bell or take one of these, elite receivers like I did in the Scott Fishbowl and come back and get Lev Bell, I am completely fine with that.
You could have Bell and Gurley in
You could.
theory.
You can have Bell, Gurley, and one of these elite receivers. Just given how Todd Gurley has been very up and down with his mock draft ADPs at this point, it's
You would have killed for Bell and Gurley last year, and I mean, there's a scenario where Gurley's knee issues are just overblown, and both of those guys are top 5 backs again.
I mean, Todd Gurley could lose 20% of the work he had last year, and he still would have been a top 3 to 5 running back. I mean, and that's not something, that's something that could happen, and he can still be massively productive.
By the way, if you have the chance to go Bell Gurley at the turn, if you're 109 and 203, do that all day.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Do exactly that. All right, I don't really have anything else on this tier. I think we covered everything that needs to be covered.
No, that's fine. We talked about those guys a lot.
All right, let's move on to the something to prove tier. Each of these guys kind of come in with negative narratives, injury concerns, etc., etc. Yeah, James Conner, Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Devontae Freeman. So current ADPs: Conner 111, Mixon 201, Cook 205, and Freeman 306. So looking at those right now, which guy do you have pegged as having the best value out of those 3?
I'm going homer pick, and it'll always be Dalvin Cook. I've been super high on him all off season. He's fully removed off the hamstring injury. He was decently productive towards the end of last year, especially towards the end of the last season when the OC change took place and he was an RB1 through the last few games of the year. And I'll always step that. I've been high on Cook since college, so Cook to me at the 205 is a fantastic value for me.
Yep. I'll talk about Dalvin Cook here in a minute, but if you're asking me about value, it's Devonta Freeman at the 306. You look at the last 3 seasons he played, and throwing out last year as a lost season. On a points per game basis and half PPR, he's been the RB9, RB7, and RB1. In 2017, 11th in juke rate and evaded tackles, 9th in breakaway runs. Tevin Coleman isn't there. Ito Smith isn't Tevin Coleman. They're actually talking about using a rotation behind Devonta Freeman, which tells you that they don't believe Ito Smith is a Tevin Coleman type of player, even though we like Ito Smith. I think Devonta Freeman's going to come back in and be a top 12 back that you can get in the 3rd round.
Yeah, so, he's a perfect back to go in that 3rd round if you try to start receiver.
Yep. So I do think Devonta Freeman presents the best value. Now, if we're going to talk about upside, which is the next question, that's where I like Dalvin Cook at that 205, because I think Cook has a lot of upside. He's got to stay on the field. He's got to be healthy. But when he was given a chance last year, he made the most of it. 3 of his last 5 games, he was over 100 total yards. 2nd in juke rate, 8th in evaded tackles, 6th in catch rate, 17th in yards created. It's all better numbers than Christian McCaffrey in those efficiency stats. So if the attempts are there for Dalvin Cook, he's going to skyrocket as long as he can stay on the field. I think the attempts will be there.
And that's with him dealing with the hamstring injury in the beginning of the season. So those numbers are working against him prior to him getting fully healthy. That's why I love Cook so much, and that's why I agree with you completely. That
he didn't have more than 15 touches up until those last, or 15 carries at least up until those last 5 games.
Yeah. So there's massive upside to him, and the fact that he should be a focal point of this offense.
Yeah. Was Dalvin Cook your upside answer too?
Yes.
All right. Who did you have for having the most risk in that tier?
So
also Dalvin Cook.
No. Yeah. It just chalked on the board. It's actually Freeman to me because it's back-to-back seasons now with the injuries that he's been dealing with. But again, that's why you draft him in the 3rd. I think it's going to be because most people are going to take Freeman not as RB1 but as RB2, and you can kind of eat some of that risk into that. You can throw James Conner in there just based on his ADP because I don't think he receives the type of work most people expect them to get. So those 2 are my 2 biggest risks.
I went James Conner.
Okay.
Like I said, I have faith in Devonta Freeman. He did miss 2 games in 20 whatever the year before last was, 16, I guess, 17. He missed 2 games in 2017. He was out all the last season. He's never been the epitome of health, but on a per game basis, if I get 14 games out of him and have to start somebody else for 3 of them, okay, fine, especially at that value. But the risk is James Conner for me. He didn't see more than 15 attempts over the last 5 weeks while I was dealing with an ankle issue and a concussion. Target volume was not there like it is for others in this tier. The underlying numbers were good, but there's just I don't believe that. You've heard me spout the narrative that I don't believe that the Steelers are going to use 2 backs, and I still don't. But if you got injury concerns with Connor, there were some seasons last year or games last year where the efficiency just went away, and with the pass volume not being there to help with that floor when the efficiency does disappear, I just think he's a bit more risky in this tier.
I mean, his first half of this season, speaking of James Conner, was insane.
Yep.
His first 8 games, he was basically Lev Bell. And my theory is that the Steelers always thought that Lev Bell was going to come back until they realized that he wasn't. And they had to really cut back down James Conner's workload. Because you see after week 9, his 8th game, he had 24 carries. It went down to 13 and never rose above 15. Mm-hmm. In those first 3 games, he wasn't hurt. He was still healthy. Yes, a touchdown upside is there. My concern has never been Jaylen Samuels, because I can see Samuels getting a lot of that fullback, halfback, tight end type of work while on the field with James Conner. So I agree with you that I'm not concerned about his quote unquote backup, because the Steelers are going to use 1 back fully. My concern is that can James Conner actually handle a full workload in a full 16 game season? Is he more of the weeks 1 through 9, or is he the last half of the season where he only averaged about 12 carries a game?
Yep. And you hope another year removed from everything else he went through. I mean, we all want James Conner to do really well.
James Conner. It's not an indictment on him.
So you just hope another year removed, the injuries kind of go away. The next tier is entitled "If They Could Stay on the Field," because Marlon Mack has been hurt, Aaron Jones has been suspended, Leonard Fournette's been hurt, and Nick Chubb has a really weird situation with Kareem Hunt being on the same team and coming back after week 8. So, if they can stay on the field, which player here do you have being the most impressive?
So my highest points per game is Marlon Mack. Mack was the RB8 following week 6 on. This was after his injuries in the beginning of the season. He ended up being massively efficient. He was a huge touchdown upside. Yes, this kind of game script dependent, but I've always been a fan of Marlon Mack. If you've been a fan of the show, you'll know that. So for me, it's always going to be Mack. Likely the best offense amongst the running backs in this tier, should be a top 5 for sure. So the upside and the potential for especially touchdown upside, as we've seen, Nyheim Hines or Jordan Wilkins do not get much work when Mack is healthy. So give me all the Mack I can.
Yep, 16 game pace last season from Marlon Mack, who is also my answer here. 261 attempts, over 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 34 receptions, 207 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Find a fantastic offensive line. Biggest roadblock other than healthy is going to be Nyheim Hines in the passing game. Other than that, if Mack is healthy, he's a running back 1 easily.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that uptick in passing work is there, because
I wouldn't either.
If they feel like like they don't want to take him off the field, you can see Mack up into that mid RB1 tier. So
yep. Also in this tier, I do like Aaron Jones. I don't think he's going to have a problem staying on the field. I just don't think his upside's quite that of what Marlon Mack was. So honorable mention to him. I do have him projected rather nicely. Leonard Fournette is a dumpster fire, and Nick Chubb. I love Nick Chubb, but 1, his ADP is driven up, and 2, Kareem Hunt looming in the second half of the season does make me a little bit nervous.
I mean, they traded away their best interior linemen, so that could hurt up the middle.
Yep.
You always have the pass catching threats of both Duke Johnson and Kareem Hunt. I think Nick Chubb's ceiling has been capped there. Again, love Nick Chubb as a player. I think he'll be fine the first 8 weeks of the season. But after that, he could be somebody that you're looking to move, especially because I think Kareem Hunt fits well into this offense.
Yep. So Kerryon Johnson will not be here. The Theo Riddick news came after we'd compiled rankings, but if they're the last girls in the bar tier, Kerryon Johnson's here right now, but he'll go up. Kenyon Drake is here right now. He'll go down. Mark Ingram is here right now. Derrick Henry, Damian Williams, Chris Carson. So at their current ADP, which is 311 for Johnson, 502 for Drake, 406 for Ingram, 307 for Henry, 207 for Williams, and 411 for Carson. Who are you taking home is the last girl on the bar? Because these are likely the last tier of running backs that you're going to get, especially in standard leagues that are going to be worth anything much.
Yeah, so we're not going to talk Kerryon Johnson because I expect him to be a late second round pick, especially after the Theo Riddick news. Probably Mark Ingram for me, because his work should be pretty much set in stone. He is a good pass catching back, whether or not Lamar Jackson will actually use him in that role. As for the other backs, Drake's news will drive that down, so he could get some value there. The walk-in boot news for Derrick Henry could drive his ADP down, which I'm still fine with, but we need to hear news about that. David Williams, I'm fading slightly because of the hamstring injury, but we'll see how the training camp and preseason comes for that. Chris Carson, I'm split on the Seattle backfield. I've always been higher, on Rashad Penny. More on that later, but I think 411 is a bit steep in what could be a more split backfield for him.
See, I'm the opposite on that, and my answer here is Chris Carson that I'm taking home with the 411. Seahawks are going to run the ball 500 times.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done that. That's not out of the realm of possibility for them. And even if you give Russell Wilson 100 of those, you still have 200 plus carries for Chris Carson and Rashad Penny. So the backfield hasn't changed that much. Chris Carson's a viable 4th round back, even if Penny does see a carry increase. And the underlying numbers, and I made this point about Lamar Miller a couple episodes ago, I'm going to make it again about Chris Carson. You can want Rashad Penny to be the bell cow all you want, and a lot of people out there do. 4.7 yards per tip, 6 in yards created, 3rd in evaded tackles, 6th in juke rate, 10th in breakaway runs. You're not taking that off the field entirely to give all of that work to Rashad Penny. You're going to keep both guys fresh at worst. So even in a split backfield scenario, you got a guy that has the potential to get over 200 carries. I'll take Chris Carson at the end of the 4th.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to a point where I think the DP is going to keep dropping. I think you could see a scenario where both Carson and Penny are within a round and a half of each other, and then I'll likely take Carson there because he should be the guy that starts the season for sure. Hasn't been completely healthy for his career, which takes into a little bit of account, but not
neither
much.
Was Rashad Penny last
but
year,
neither was Rashad,
but for his career,
exactly Rashad Penny too. As well being banged up. The loss of Mike Davis even opens up more carries for both running backs. It's just whether or not we're going to see that type of running volume again. Just given, I think what would be a step down from the defense.
See, I think you do though, because even last year the defense wasn't good. You're going to have those young guys with another year under their belt, and you still only passed the ball 420 times and ran it 540 plus. So, I mean, even if you see a volume increase, that rate shifts, that's still just an insane amount of carries to find for this team with one less back.
Yeah.
So, it's Chris Carson for me. The other note I had on here doesn't really apply. Reasons to not buy the Kerryon Johnson hype. It's injuries, and that's about it. Especially with Theo Riddick not there. So
it's always been injuries for him. See, for me, it's like the loss of Theo is it's not mute because I think Theo would have taken enough targets away. It's the fact that I think CJ Anderson's going to see a little bit more uptick in his carries because I think Kerryon is not going to be a guy you're going to see get 285 plus touches. He's been banged up since high school, effectively. Now he can play through pain extremely well. He only missed 4 games in college. Just him playing through pain will cap the amount of touches he gets during these games. And that's why I think they brought in CJ Anderson is because he has proven already that he can take on a full workload throughout an entire season. So you're buying Kerryon in this fact that he could see 25 to 30 touches. Kerryon Johnson could end up being like James Conner, where he blows up first half and then they have to ease him back a bit because you're starting to see that the strain of a full season happen to him.
Yep. Now at the 311, I'm completely okay with Kerryon that you're running back 2 if you want wide receiver heavy.
That's right.
The first
now,
2 rounds. So, but I'd expect that to go up.
Yeah. So I'm not going to own him. I love Kerryon. I loved his tape. I'm going to root for him unless I'm playing against him. But it's going to be a tough buy for me for a guy who may have his cap in terms of his touches.
Yep. All right. And then for the last tier, guys who catch passes. and Lamar Miller.
I love it. I love that tier name.
Philip Lindsay, James White, Tevin Coleman, Tariq Cohen, and Lamar Miller.
And Lamar Miller.
So just kind of everyone's situations. You've got additions and relocations all over the place. You got Philip Lindsay, who's coming off of a wrist injury and being chased by Royce Freeman. You got James White, who you've added Damian Harris to that mix. You got Tevin Coleman now in San Francisco. Tariq Cohen now has David Montgomery, no Jordan Howard, and Lamar Miller has a healthy Deonta Foreman. Really, I don't know. Give me a guy. You're up to pick here. Who you picking?
James White.
Yep.
Because I expect some regression from his targets, but I don't think it's going to be that much. Damian Harris does not hurt James White. That only affects Sony Michel. They've still kept Rex Burkhead that could cut a little bit into it. But again, Tom Brady has always vouched for James White. They lose their Gronk. They lose their, that guy who can also catch underneath passes and be that reliable third down option. White could be that guy and more. I had to take Coleman in certain spots. I don't love him, but I like his ADP still. But it's all about Lamar Miller in the 6th round here.
Yeah, there is no more underrated back to Lamar Miller consistently. 4.6 yards per attempt last season. He's had 3 straight years of over 200 carries. His 16-game pace last season was 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns, 33 receptions, and just over 200 yards receiving. Is finished as the RB19, RB16, and RB17 since he came over to Houston. His current ADP, 29th running back drafted.
Value. And he's a guy I'm targeting if I go wide receiver heavy to start my drafts, and I need either a super late RB1 or a good RB2. Touchdowns have always been his vein of his existence. 6 total in the last 3 seasons.
Yep.
But this offense should be better. The offensive line can't play much worse than it did last year. So there's upside more to him. Even a healthy Deonta Foreman still doesn't give me much concern because Achilles injuries are no joke, especially to running backs.
Yep. And even if it does drive down from that projected 16-game pace, I mean, he's still your running back 3 at that point. He's still a good insurance policy to have around if something happens to one of your running backs and you can't get the handcuff, because you're going to plug him in and you're guaranteed 10 to 15 points most weeks.
And you're happy with that, especially.
Yep. You're also happy if he's your flex every week.
Yeah. So that's good.
Very, very good floor player to own. All right, let's hit a beer review, and then we will move on to the last couple tiers. Hold on, there's a drop here.
Beer review.
All right, Dan, what do you think of Blueberry Sorbets?
I've been trying my best to not finish this beer before the beer review. With this long first half, it's gotten a little bit harder with these rankings because there's so much to talk about. But this is a fantastic New England style milkshake IPA. If you like blueberries, it's definitely going to stick out, but it's not overpowering. It's not super sugary. It's got a nice mouthfeel to it, very creamy, very smooth, very, very sweet. This is the type of milkshakes that I go for. I don't like them when they're missing the sweetness to it. This is a good balance between both. Mars has been pretty well known for their milkshake, so I was excited to get this one. So great job, guys.
Yep, and for me, I had a graham cracker porter from Denver Beer Co., and it's really, really good. You take the first drink of it, you definitely get graham cracker up front and kind of a wave of chocolate also. And I don't know, it's not advertised as chocolate being there. It is a porter, so that doesn't surprise me too much that it is there. But it almost, your mind just tells you it's s'mores, even though it's not a s'mores stout or a s'mores porter. There's no marshmallow anywhere near it. But you get that graham cracker and it just tells you it's s'mores and you should be sitting by the fire like it does on a can. It's a great fall beer. It's incredibly flavorful. The graham cracker added more to it than I thought it was going to. And I was pleasantly surprised, honestly. I was purely ready to get something that was just, kind of roasty and porter-ish, and I didn't get that. So I got something that actually had a lot of flavor that the graham cracker stood out. And so good job, Denver Beer Co.
I almost want to try it myself.
If I had another one, I'd let you.
It sounds tasty.
Yep. All right. we're moving on to the next tier, the Christian Michael tier of upside. So David Montgomery, Sony Michel, Josh Jacobs, Darius Geis, Jordan Howard, Latavius Murray, Miles Sanders, Royce Freeman. Who are you going to take a shot on here? Because there's a lot of guys that you're either hoping have situations changed or take advantage of new landing spots, or rookies. So who are you taking a shot at here?
It's always going to be Darius Geis, because I've always thought the hammy thing was a little bit overblown. The whole like there's been videos of him it's like every 3 or 4 days of him doing more and more and more and just being like, he just doesn't look hurt at all. So give me that value. Again, hammies concern me, so I understand why he's down at this point. But my other player is Latavius Murray. Now there is risk there because of the downtick in touches that Mark Ingram had last year compared to their breakout year with Kamara in 2017, but this is still going to be a top half offensive line in New Orleans. He's still going to see some of the best space and some of the best offenses that he's been on in his entire career. So with Drew Brees at the helm, a lot of touchdown upside to him. I don't have his ADP in front of me, but there's value to that right there, especially with some of the guys in this tier. Like David Montgomery is going really high. I'm not high on Sony Michel this year. Josh Jacobs, again, like Montgomery, is going too high for who they are right now. But Geis and Murray are the ones that stuck out to most. I will give an honorable mention to Miles Sanders because I fucking love Miles Sanders.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for me, if you're telling me who am I taking a shot on, Darius Geis is at the top of my list. He was a high round draft pick. They brought him in to be the guy. He hurt himself in preseason, never got that chance. There's nothing to say that he can't perform. There's nothing to say that he can't do it. He tore an ACL, which is an injury you're not likely to re-aggravate, and the hamstring issue is overblown, is a training issue, and is about 6 weeks in the past. So if you're asking me who I'm taking here, it's Darius Geis, and it's Darius Geis all day, because you got a guy that has running back 2 floor that you're getting very late. You're asking me who else in this tier has the potential to live up. I was going to go Josh Jacobs, and that's because he has the potential to take hold of that backfield, to be the guy, to take work away from Jalen Richard, limit Doug Martin into relief duty. But he's going to have to earn that, and he's going to have to come into camp and to show that he could do it. So while I see a scenario where Josh Jacobs does live up to his draft hype, it does live up to his ADP, I'm not sold on it yet. I need to see more in preseason, hear more out of camp that he's going to be that guy.
Yeah.
As for David Montgomery, his ADP of 403 is way too high.
That is insane.
Yes. That is incredibly insane. It's like, you can't forget Tariq Cohen exists. And you can make the argument that David Montgomery was brought in to be a more dynamic back, which it's true he was. Jordan Howard still saw 25 plus targets last season. We see it all the time where backs usually find their receiving legs a little bit later in the NFL, not necessarily early on.
Yeah.
And yes, David Montgomery's a more dynamic back. They're going to be able to throw to him. He's going to be able to pick up yardage. You can't assume it's a pass anytime he comes off the field. But Tariq Cohen's still there. Tariq Cohen's going to demand a significant amount of the passing work. He's going to mix into the running work. And they did sign Mike Davis.
Mike Davis is big enough to also take short yardage work and red zone carries away from him. He's 5'11", 220 pounds. I mean, He's big enough to play that role. And he's actually bigger than David Montgomery. Now, Montgomery's brought in to be Jordan Howard plus, but he's not going to take all the touches away that was lost from Benny Cunningham going away, which was nothing. So temper expectations a bit on him. We're still big fans of him here, and he could be a guy that could break out more so in year 2 and year 3.
The hypes. We hate the ADP.
Yeah. Like, you got to see what this offense looks like. I'm like, even with multi-running back sets, that's still Tariq Cohen could be taking a lot of those targets away.
And also, don't forget that when you say more dynamic, part of the problem the Bears had with Jordan Howard and why they shipped him out of town is he couldn't close out games, couldn't grind out yardage, and couldn't make people miss between the tackles. They brought him in to be a more dynamic runner, I think more so than they did to catch passes.
Yeah, so he's got limited ceiling without that pass catching work. I can see the hype from it in standard leagues, even though I still think that's a little bit too high. But you're talking about halfway PPR plus, you're starting to get into that. Okay, we got to relax on this.
Yep. All right, keeping it moving. They aren't dead yet tier: LaShawn McCoy, Adrian Peterson, Peyton Barber, Deion Lewis, Rashad Penny. Dan, go ahead and reiterate why you like Penny. We talked about it earlier, and then I'll talk Peyton Barber.
Yeah, so I still love the fact that this could still be a top 5 team in total carries. That's why I love Rashad Penny. Mike Davis is gone. He went to Chicago, like we just mentioned. So not only is the carries uptick from there, the potential pass catching work is there. Was just Mike Davis and J.D. McKissick. McKissick did absolutely nothing. Carson got 20 carries. I don't expect that to fully increase. Penny can see himself into this role. He was productive in that type of work in college. So you're looking at a guy who also averaged 4.9 yards per carry. In an offensive line that figures to still be good enough to produce for all these 3 backs, which I think as a total were like 4.8. So that's why I still like Carson, but this is terms of actual value per ADP. Now, both running backs have dealt with their injuries, but there is also draft capital on the Penny side. He was a first-round pick last year. They just won't ignore that. Now, it's whether or not they're going to take them both off the field, or they're going to take Carson off the field more. I just like Penny's value in the 6th round, in the back of the 6th round, compared to Carson's. You're taking less risk unless you can get Carson as your, as your RB3 in the 4th round. Fine, but Penny's going to give you a little bit more value for where he's being drafted, and if there's even an uptick in his pass catching work, put him out in space, you're going to see, a potential payoff to where he's being taken.
Yeah, I'm going to have much less glowing things to say about Peyton Barber. It's terrible. The efficiency is absolutely terrible. He ran for 3.7 yards an attempt, had 260 plus touches, and still managed under 1,000 yards. Absolutely god-awful. 10th in evaded tackles. Literally his only good number. But Ronald Jones is the only guy behind him. He hasn't done it yet in the NFL. He was also terrible. It's Peyton Barber's job to lose. Still, you got to take a flyer just in case Ronald Jones doesn't progress the way everybody wants Ronald Jones to progress and think Ronald Jones will progress.
I mean, Ronald Jones put on weight. No, normally when running backs put on weight, that's fine. You want him to be able to, maybe add some muscle, get into that more of that bell cow shape. Ronald Jones is a speed runner. Adding on weight is not a good thing for him.
He's added weight the last 2 seasons too.
Yeah, that's his only thing that he can give up for. The fact that this offense is figured to spread the football out a lot more, put a lot more guys in space. Peyton Barber, who also made, as you just said, made a lot of defenders miss. That's a good benefit to have when you have a guy out in space. So I agree with you on this.
You're at a point where somebody's going to take a flyer on Peyton Barber that did the Nick Sparks honorary draft strategy of take cheap running backs, and Peyton Barber's a good one to fill that.
And now it's not going to be Bruce Anderson. No, he just go check out his metrics. I'm sorry. He's a good name to know. He did a lot in college, but the dude's fucking not athletic. I'm sorry. It's not Bruce Anderson.
Nope. All right, on to the we also catch passes tier. Jalen Richard, Austin Eckler, Ronald Jones, Darrell Henderson, Nyheim Hines. Outside of Austin Eckler, because of the obvious Melvin Gordon stuff, what name here is most interesting to you?
I put down Hines because I still think he's going to have a role even with Marlon Mack healthy. He may not have the super upside in targets, but again, even with that being said, with Marlon Mack, he's also been known to not be healthy. So there is some upside to him. Darrell Henderson's ADP is just a bit too high for it there.
All right, that answers the second question.
Yeah, exactly. And it just Richard, I like Richard. It just I need to see what the backfield looks like before I can buy into it even more. So
yeah. Asking me right now, I'm going to take a flyer on Ronald Jones just because he could unseat Peyton Barber. That's true. Everything I just said. That's the guy. I don't see Nyheim Hines unseating Marlon Mack as long as Marlon Mack is healthy. Jalen Richard's third on that depth chart. Austin Eckler, again, he's going to move up, so I'm not going to talk much about him right now. And Darrell Henderson's ADP is just, it's through the roof, and he's not going to unseat Todd Gurley entirely. Ronald Jones is a guy here that has a chance to be a bell cow back by the end of the season. So give me that. Darrell Henderson's ADP, I think we both feel 612 is completely unjustified, yes?
Yeah, massively. I mean, he's going to have some more value to him. He's even with a healthy Todd Gurley, but you're getting into the, little too high.
Here's the best you can hope for Darrell Henderson. Austin Eckler the last 2 years.
Yeah,
That's
which is
basically what you're hoping for.
flex value, but still slightly annoyed.
It's a flex and probably mostly in games that they're leading.
Yeah.
Onto the tier of upside. Kareem Hunt, 804. Matt Breida, 1304. Jalen Samuels, 904. Carlos Hyde, 1004. Jerick McKinnon, 1002. Deonta Foreman, 904. Who's most likely to have a top 24 finish?
I guess Breida, because he could have been there had he not gotten hurt. Love his ADP right now at 1304. They'll expect that to go up with the Jerick McKinnon news. Carlos Hyde, I guess, if Damian Williams can't get healthy. Kareem Hunt in a points per game basis could be. Just given that offense, but I think his ADP is a bit too high right now.
So I'm going to tell you the way I set up this question before the Jerick McKinnon news. So I'm going to be watching this closely. I was going to say Jerick McKinnon, because even with Tevin Coleman there, we saw how Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman worked. Tevin Coleman as a bell cow last year didn't really work out necessarily. And we saw Jerick McKinnon be a top 24 running back when him and Latavius Murray were splitting work. So we know he's dynamic enough to do that. He's dynamic enough and good enough in the passing game to be able to put up numbers to sneak into that area. And at the 1002, if you were healthy or is healthy within the next week or two, I'm completely fine with that. But with the injury that came out, I'm a little more weary on that.
Yeah. Like for me, it's always, it's tough because McKinnon's been pretty efficient with his work. Now, this should be an offense on similar grounds to what the Vikings were pre-Kirk Cousins era, or I guess during the Sam Bradford times. But it's tough because he's extremely athletic, but for some reason he can't put it together. Like even when he's been healthy, he needs.
Well, then you finally see him put it together for a season. He gets his money and he gets hurt.
Yeah.
So.
It's a very interesting name. I still like Matt Breida just given his ADP at this point, though. It's insane. He's just a free player almost.
Yep. No, I like Matt Breida a lot too because he's been efficient when he's been able to play and been healthy. And if there is anything lingering with McKinnon, then he could also be it. Kareem Hunt's ADP at 804, is that high to you?
Yeah, I think he's not going to be available to you until week 10.
And even when he is, he's not the guy. You're not getting a surefire championship bell cow.
Yeah. Basically, you're drafting Hunt to be a trade piece because people are going to want to trade for him when that week 8-9 starts to show up. He's okay to draft, I guess, in these deeper bench leagues, or if you have an IR slot that allows suspension players to be there, then sure. But I still think 8th round is a bit too high.
Yep. And then Jalen Samuels, Deonta Foreman, both at 904, tied on ADP. I also think that those guys might be a little high just because unlike Jerick McKinnon or Matt Breida or even Carlos Hyde, I'm not sure that they're surefire value. Maybe more so for Foreman than Samuels, but people are treating Samuels like he's going to be I guess a change of pace guy like Austin Eckler level or have some value. And I just, outside of Connor hurting himself, I just don't see it.
Yeah. I'm flipped. I think they're both a bit too high, especially Foreman's. I think you're asking of a guy who hasn't done anything yet. I know he's coming off of his injuries, but we just spoke highly, of Lamar Miller. Like even if Foreman cuts into some of his work, is he going to be justifiable enough to be your RB4 or 5 at that point? If you're drafting him high, I would rather take it, a shot of more upside with a guy like Matt Breida in the third.
I'm actually surprised. I think I'd be less shocked if Breida was there and those two guys were in the 13th.
Yeah. We're at the point now where these are going to be changing a lot, especially through the training camp injuries and hypes that keeps coming out, especially with preseason coming up.
And again, we'll do some special episodes where you talk ADP risers and fallers and rankings risers and fallers and things like that. So make sure you subscribe to YouTube because those are going to be YouTube only episodes. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they fell or that corrected.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. The last 3 tiers combined into a single tier to save time tier. So the ask here is just pick 1 or 2 guys you wanted to talk about. This is our 52 through 69. Duke Johnson, Damian Harris, CJ Anderson, TJ Yeldon, Doug Martin, Gus Edwards, Ito Smith, Alex Madison, Justice Hill, Mike Davis, Gio Bernard, Chris Thompson, Frank Gore, Justin Jackson, Jamal Williams, Alfred Blue, Mike Weber, Jordan Wilkins. There were 70, but they already got cut. So, anybody there you want to talk about?
Damon Harris needs to be rostered in all spots. Sony Michelle is already dealing with injuries, even though he looks to be coming back slightly healthy now. I don't see him putting together a full 16 game season. And I see Harris being very good value as a free player at this point. And I guess CJ Anderson, because I still think the uptick in touches will be there with the Theo Riddick cutting. It won't come via passing work, but I think you could see an uptick in carries is if they want to put a cap on Kerryon Johnson.
Yep, CJ Anderson was going to be a call out for me too. I think that he also could see some Austin Eckler type of weeks where he's actually going to be relevant or flex relevant because of the cap on Kerryon Johnson. Duke Johnson's a call out who's been catching a bunch of hype, even though he's got a hamstring injury. Ito
Drink.
Smith, we know Devonta. Yes, drink. Ito Smith. I'm drinking. Even though we know that Devonta Freeman's going to be back, there's always a potential for injury there, and we know that Devonta Freeman isn't going to be the true workhorse. And see, the only other one here would probably be Frank Gore, because right now Devin Singletary is getting all the first round reps in Buffalo, which does not bode well for TJ Yeldon. But Frank Gore was on the NFI list and has since been removed.
LaShawn McCoy is also a potential cut candidate. So if he does get cut, which wouldn't shock me at all, his landing spot could be huge. Especially with some of these backfields like Kansas City or like the Bucks that seem a little bit out of shape.
Yep. All right, that's all we got here. Next episode, we'll be talking wide receivers, a lot in the same format. So be sure to tune in for that. Should be same time, same place-ish. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Get yourself into that Listener League drawing. It is an IDP league this year. Send us a screenshot of you subscribed on YouTube or buy merch or put in for an Midwest FF Expo ticket, MidwestFFExpo.com. That's going down August 18th in Canton, Ohio. We will be there all weekend. I'm at Hot BFF with 2 P's, at Thury BFF with 2 F's. Say bye.
Bye.
All right, and we will catch you guys next week to discuss some wide receivers.
See ya.
See ya.